Have you almost died? Stage 4 cancer at age 30. They had to cut a whole bunch of bits out of me and 3 months of chemo. But cancer-free 13 years and counting. Lymphoma. I just thought it was my turn to be skinny. Kayak capsized out in the ocean and dumbass me didn't have a life jacket. Tide was going out. Tread water for 3 hours and by some miracle a random jet skier found me. Cutting wood and the saw blade got loose. Flew under my armpit. Riptide in Fort Lauderdale. Started swimming back in after body surfing. Started realizing I was actually further away from shore than when I started swimming in. Started doggy paddling. I was so tired and for a brief second I actually thought I was going to die. Then I remembered about swimming parallel and looking for the break in the waves. MRSA infection. Had fever night sweats for weeks before doctors found what was wrong. Took 3 months to recover. Adding while MRSA seems like an extremely common illness, there ought to be more PSAs on the subject. So, I was a kid sunbathing in my yard. My mom's room window was on the 2nd floor right above me. My little sister was playing around in her room for some reason. I decided I was done sunbathing. The second I got up and walked away from my spot, the in-window air conditioner unit landed on the ground right where my head was. Had a seizure, slid off my friend's bed and into a position where I could not breathe. Thankfully they and their partner at the time were able to adjust me so I could breathe before the paramedics arrived. Edit just remembered, was also dumb enough to swim under a plastic pool cover and almost suffocated that way as well. Apparently I just hate breathing. Was shot at as a teenager while delivering pizza. They were trying to rob me but I wasn't responding because I had my music up and didn't notice them gesturing in the lane next to me. The bullet broke both front door windows and passed right in front of my face. I hit the gas through a red light and then tried to evade them on my way back to the pizza shop. They shot at me again from the road after I finally made it back to the parking lot. Cops never caught them. Allergic reaction to a peach. Got thrown by a horse directly into a barbed wire fence. Had I landed on my head or the wire caught my neck, I'd be toast. Thankfully my legs went into the wire and I walked away with the wind knocked out of me and 3 pretty impressive lacerations on my legs. Still have the scars 25 years later. Hit as a pedestrian in a crosswalk while I was in high school and fully immobilized. Years later, while in college, got into a snowy car accident and suffered a severe brain injury. In between the two, had a toxic breakup which temporarily took away my will to live. Doing better now. When I was little, I underestimated the strength of a wave pool at a hotel. I went to the deep end where the waves are first formed and I was on a little pool donut. I was maybe 6-7. I remember I got turned around by accident and a wave hit me from behind and I immediately got sucked down into the water. I thought I was a good swimmer then but was so wrong. Had it not been for my dad watching me, I probably would have drowned as the lifeguard didn't even notice me get swept underneath. When I was born I came out not breathing because I choked on my own poop, meconium aspiration syndrome. When I was 12 I found out I'm deathly allergic to certain antibiotic families. Got prescribed them and had such a severe reaction I almost died. So grateful for my beautiful life. I tripped over a kid's toy and fell as first through a glass coffee table. At first, I thought I miraculously didn't get any cuts. Then I stood up and the big shard in my side fell out. Just an inch to the right, and it would have lacerated my liver. 15 stitches and a long healing process later. I've got a wicked scar, but I'm fine. Suicide IED Afghanistan 2021. Almost drowned as a toddler. I had a pimple in my armpit. It was tiny so I ignored it. I kept ignoring it as it got bigger. Really big. Then one night I suddenly experienced uncontrollable shivering. I guessed it was an infection and asked my wife to take me to ER. It was sepsis. My cubicle in ER was suddenly filled with nurses and the ER doctor. I don't remember much, but my wife told me they all had their game faces on and were all extremely serious about the situation. My stupidity almost cost me. I was electrocuted at age 9. Technically dead for several minutes. At age 22 in SF, and a drunk driver jumped the curb and was heading straight for us when his tires blew and he veered and missed us by inches. I had to get some dry ice from the bottom of the 4-foot-tall chest we kept it in. Scraping the bottom of the barrel. I leaned all the way in, and stupidly inhaled. Almost blacked out. It was in a part of the hospital that wasn't being used and had very little foot traffic. Edit: dry ice is solid carbon dioxide, and the fun fog you get from it is just carbon dioxide gas. It will suffocate you. In college I once took a sleeping pill and started to choke on it. I then started laughing as I was choking because of the idea of my death being caused by a sleeping pill felt like peak irony. Tick bite: contracted human granulocytic anaplasmosis. Nuked my white blood cell count to the point where they put me in a solitary room because they were worried I'd die if I was exposed to anything. It was crazy. I had a fever that spiked at 108 for what felt like an eternity. I'm good now though. Removed the barrel from my mouth. Pulmonary embolism. Heart stopped over 30 times, but drive kept fighting for my life with me. Got shot. I looked the wrong way for cars on a one-way street before crossing while on my bike. Decided to look the other way just for SGS midway and saw a wall of cars quickly approaching. It fucked me up for a few weeks. I started having nightmares. I realized I must care more about living than I did several years ago at the height of my depression. I appreciated how much my mental health had improved, so I got a tattoo to commemorate this incident. Replacing a fuse in a cupboard under the sink when I was 19. Awoke sitting against the fridge on the other side of the kitchen aprox. 9 feet holding said fuse in blackened fingers. Tried to swim when I was a toddler and my brother saved me. And also tried to KMS with the car, but another car came on the road where I wanted to crash and I didn't want to bring someone with me. Kidney cancer before I turned 2. Shit sucked, man. Workplace shooting, and separately ex-wife tried to shoot me. Thankfully the shooter didn't fire on me and the ex wasn't smart enough to properly handle a firearm. Accidentally put the forklift in drive while hopping off to put the tailgate back on a pickup truck. The emergency brake was old, so it moved forward slowly as I was doing so. The left prong started to pin my left leg against the pickup. Luckily it wasn't moving too fast and I'm tall, so I quickly moved my leg to the left. It left a good cut in the back of my leg and ripped off my shorts, but lol. I remember just laying my head on the tailgate thinking how bad that could have been. Also overdosed on a speedball once, haha, either way, live and you learn. When I was like 13, I was out at a lake park and suffered a heat stroke. I guess I didn't drink enough because I started feeling faint on the stairs of a slide. I told my dad to call an ambulance because I knew something was wrong. I began to pass out, and he immediately picked me up to run me to the front for some water. I began to suffer temporary blindness on the way. The last thing I remember was coming to once my family started giving me water and pouring it on me, lol. Cat turned on a burner on the stove overnight, but it didn't light. Woke up to the smell of gas, shut it down and just made sure I turned everything I could off and waited for it to dissipate. Thankfully it was the first night in a long row that we have opened up and turned off the air conditioning, so there was already a cross breeze. We take the stove controls off unless we're using it now. I opened up a 55-gallon drum that someone had put a few broken car batteries in. What they didn't tell me was that they had also dumped baking soda all over the mess to neutralize the acid before they clamped the lid on. I was taking the lid off the drum, and the instant it came loose, the pressure that had built up in the drum blasted the lid 20 feet in the air. It probably would have gone 30 feet if my face hadn't been in